To ask the First Minister what issues will be discussed at the next meeting of the Cabinet.
First Minister.
Issues of importance to the people of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
Yesterday in the budget, I was told that my, I think, realistic and costly proposals to give 24,000 2-year-olds a free nursery place had been rejected by the Government. I was told that the First Minister's Government preferred family nurse partnerships instead. Can he tell me how many children currently benefit from family nurse partnerships?
First Minister.
Well, it's a low figure at the present moment, which is exactly why it's being rolled out across Scotland, as we announced last October. The pilot was in Lothian and is now being rolled out across Scotland. But can I say to Wullie Rennie that his argument was carefully considered, and the reason the Government is taking the stance it has is twofold. One, we believe we should get to the 600 hours. Can I remind him we inherited 412.5 hours, I think, and make that apply to 3- and 4-year-olds and give it statutory backing. Our partners in Council say that we can achieve this in the high-quality standards that Scotland is used to in terms of childcare and nursery provision, which are much higher, as he should know, than in England and Wales at the present moment in terms of the qualifications that staff have to have. And secondly, there is a strong belief in England at the present moment, expressed by many local authorities, that the only way the Conservative Liberal coalition are going to extend to 2-year-olds is by reducing the standards. Well, you shake your head. It's only a week since it was announced there would be a relaxation of the number of children per worker. Now, I think there is a case to be made in terms of the quality of provision, as well as the incredible extension to 600 hours, and many, many families across Scotland will welcome that increasingly.
Wullie Rennie.
I suspect even the most sycophantic backbencher will have recognised that my question was about family nurse partnerships, not 3- and 4-year-olds. And he should also recognise, he should check his facts. If he looks at what's happening in England, they are increasing the standard for nursery education, not reducing it. He should check his facts. And he's right, it is a low number. It's only 908. Now, family nurse partnerships, they are a good thing, but they're no substitute for 24,000 nursery places. They're doing both in England. It's not one or the other, they're doing both. I shouldn't have to remind him, but the investment before the age of 3, all the experts say, is the best investment to make. It gives the best return. So if he's not going to use his budget to make this change, how is he going to close the gap between the 900 people that he wants to help and the 24,000 people that could benefit under my plans?
First Minister.
As I pointed out, the family nurse partnerships have been rolled out across Scotland. That was the purpose of the October announcement, because of their success in the pilot study. Now, I hope that Wullie Rennie is going to go back and revise his question in terms of the record, because he said that standards were being increased, and perhaps he was referring to the qualifications of the staff in England. But that's not the point I made to him. The point I made to him was the relaxation in terms of the number of children per staff member. Now, if you increase the number of children allowed per staff member, that would tend to me to indicate a lowering of quality of provision, as opposed, well, there is substantial, and yes, it is going up, and not the greater number of children per staff member. That would indicate to me a lowering of quality of provision, as many people, and we're very happy to debate with Wullie Rennie about how the best way forward. But I do think that the extension to 600 hours, the initiatives being taken, the early years development are a very substantial part of this government's programme, and the stress on early years. But, Wullie Rennie, this is an argument he puts forward, and an argument I hope that we listen to and respond to in terms of the early years planning. But he represents, or is in a party in government, which is destroying the livelihoods of low-income families across Scotland at the present moment. They've lost hundreds, if thousands of pounds in terms of tax allowances and childcare, and now face the prospect of being forcibly, in terms of finance, evicted from their homes if they happen to have a spare room. So, representing a party which is engaged in that sort of policy, it is a bit of a brass neck to come along here and pretend you're on the side of young families.
Question number 3, Wullie Rennie.
To ask the First Minister what issues will be discussed at the next meeting of the Cabinet.
First Minister.
Issues of importance to the people of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
The First Minister has been an advocate of the Scottish Parliament all his political life. I can understand why he might not want to give up on his ambition of an independent Scotland. But can he tell me, if Scotland votes no, whether he would engage with other parties on further powers for the Parliament? Nicola Sturgeon has urged us all to work together if Scotland votes yes. Will he work with us if Scotland votes no?
First Minister.
Well, of course, the extraordinary position of Wullie Rennie, my certain memory on this is he was desperate to avoid Devil Max or federalism on the ballot paper in the referendum. Because I go into the referendum campaigning to win, as the Yes campaign does. That's how we see Scotland's future. I have absolutely no idea, with the Liberal Democrats' multi-faced alliances between the anti-European Tories and no further devolution Labour Party, where on earth the Liberal Democrats now stand.
Wullie Rennie.
The First Minister knows the referendum is about whether Scotland stays as part of the UK or not. Even his own consultation rejected a second question. I don't quite understand why he's so shy about this. The Liberal Democrats have published our plans for Home Rule in a federal UK. Reform Scotland has produced Devo Plus, and the IPPR's Devo More is out tomorrow. There is a consensus emerging on more powers from all those plans, and it seems to be endorsed by members of the public. Will he at least consider working with me and others on a new constitutional future if Scotland votes no? His deputy wants partnership. That's reasonable. Why doesn't he?
First Minister.
Well, I do accept one thing. If you look at the social attitude survey, it shows a strong support for the Scottish Parliament increasing its powers. It also shows strong support for the Scottish Parliament to have full powers. And it also shows majority support for the Scottish Parliament controlling items such as social security, which I don't think have even featured in any of the Liberal Democrats' proposals. But I find this attitude surprising. The Liberal Democrats were extremely coy and reluctant to have a referendum at all at one point, and then to have anything else on the ballot paper. Now, apparently, we should revisit that in some way, or try to rearrange the furniture. I don't see how that is tenable. The Liberal Democrat Party wouldn't go into alliance with the SNP at one point because we wanted a referendum on independence. Now they're in alliance with the Conservative Party, who want a referendum on Europe. So, if the Liberal Democrats are willing to introduce the European principles because they have office in the House of Commons at the present moment, then I don't think that many people will regard them as the most reliable allies in terms of the Scottish self-government cause. So my proposition to Wullie Rennie is, given that in the past, at least, Liberal Democrats have expressed the strongest support for Scotland having the strongest possible powers, why doesn't he desert the Europhobic Conservatives and the No Further Labour Party and come and join the Yes campaign? And then we can campaign jointly to take the Scottish people into a position of real self-government.
Thank you. Question 3, Wullie Rennie.
To ask the First Minister what issues will be discussed at the next meeting of the Cabinet.
First Minister.
Issues of importance to the people of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
Tomorrow, the new Scottish Police Authority is set to strip the Chief Constable of significant powers and impose 3 new powerful group directors over whom the Chief Constable will have no control. Last time, the First Minister laughed this off as creative tension. Since then, the Chief Constable has called for fresh legislation, and both sides have spent thousands hiring lawyers to fight each other. Is the First Minister still laughing?
First Minister.
Well, can I just dispute the premise of the question? I've never regarded this as anything other than a serious matter, but what I've said to the Chamber, I believe it's capable of resolution, and I hope that every member of the Chamber is looking upon it in that attitude. I don't actually agree with the detail, never mind the premise of Wullie Rennie's question, but perhaps it's better to allow the meeting to take place tomorrow, and then if Wullie Rennie wants to question me next week, then no doubt he will have the opportunity Well, in terms of the structures we're set up, can I just point out to the Chamber, it isn't actually for the First Minister to determine these matters. But make no mistake that the Government is well aware of the responsibilities it has and will discharge these responsibilities.
Wullie Rennie.
If the First Minister will forgive me, I'll ask him the questions this week when it matters, before the decisions are taken, because he's responsible to this Parliament and he should answer the questions. And he shouldn't be so complacent about it. Despite what he says, the Chief Constable has been stripped of his independence. And it gets worse. How can the Chief Constable be held to account by the police authority when that authority will control many of the services themselves? It will be a jumble and it will lead to a blame game. The Chief Inspector of Constabulary said the authority will not be able to hold itself to account. Will the First Minister just accept that the legislation is not fit for purpose and must be changed?
First Minister.
No, I don't accept that the legislation passed by an overwhelming majority in this Parliament is not fit for purpose. I'm quite certain that the Labour benches, if they had felt it wasn't fit for purpose, would have realised that and not voted for it when we came to decision time. I don't think it's a question of the legislation. I think it's a policy question. I dispute Wullie Rennie's premise in two ways. Firstly, I regard this as a situation that needs to be resolved. I regard it seriously, and the Government takes its responsibilities extremely seriously in this matter. The other reason I dispute Wullie Rennie's premise is that I think if he waits to see the decisions that are made, it will turn out that the premise of his question was actually inaccurate. That's why I sometimes think it's better to, well, I could tour this in a range of figures, like, for example, his forecasts on college waiting lists, which may or may not turn out to be true. But I think it would be better, given the meetings tomorrow, to wait and see what actually happens, and then Wullie Rennie can come back, as opposed to trying to answer a question which I do assure Wullie Rennie is based on an aspect of false premise.
Question number 3, Wullie Rennie.
To ask the First Minister what issues will be discussed at the next meeting of the Cabinet.
First Minister.
Issues of importance to the people of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
2 months ago, I asked the First Minister to extend nursery education for 2-year-olds. He said he would consider it. Now that he's had time, what decision has he reached?
First Minister.
Well, as Wullie Rennie well knows, that there's a range of initiatives that have already been announced in terms of the overall ambit of getting it right for every child. The offer of 600 hours for 3- and 4-year-olds, the incentives that have been offered to family centres to expand their operations across Scotland, the incentive for family nurse partnerships, which apply to people younger than 2, in terms of the real difference that can make to some of the most challenged families in our community. So there's a range of measures which are there. The all-party group, indeed, which is meeting, is considering these matters. They'll come forward, as he knows, in legislation. But in terms of the emphasis that's been put on early years development, I don't think it can be seriously said that this Government doesn't have a focus and a concentration, and there are substantial and important improvements being made to enhance the life chances of children of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
I think all members would welcome what the First Minister says about extra provision. But in England, 40% of 2-year-olds will be getting 15 hours a week of nursery education. I mean, the future provision for 3- and 4-year-olds is good as well. And Professor James Heckman, who the First Minister will know is clear, he says the investment before the age of 3 gets the best return. So will he actually commit today, or at least give an indication today, that he's prepared to consider what's happening with the extra provision, the 40% of 2-year-olds? Because that could be transformational. It could help disadvantaged children get a good start in life. So can I press him again? Members from all parties agree with this, including his own. Will he take this important step today?
First Minister.
Can I say two things in seriousness to Wullie Rennie? I mean, firstly, he's aware that the 600-hour commitment is much greater than is being allocated in England for 3- and 4-year-olds. I mean, that's true. I don't think he should disregard the importance of family centres and family nurse partnership in providing the targeted support. The task force that is working on this is working extremely hard to bring about the best possible position for young people in Scotland. But I could cite the whole variety of sources from English local authorities who are seriously questioning whether aspects of what is said to be an offer in England can actually be delivered, given the resource position. Well, given the resource position that they face, there's a whole range of English local authority leaders and other experts who are seriously doubting that. And therefore, I think we can be confident that what has been announced in Scotland to date, the 600-hour commitment for 3- and 4-year-olds, the expansion of family partnerships, the expansion of family nurse partnerships and family centres, these things are actually going to be delivered. The all-party group which is meeting on this keeps the matter under continuing review. The focus of that is going to be very important in terms of government decision-making, as is in the statutory commitment to this. That package represents a substantial enhancement of provision in Scotland and is fully in line with a shift to early support and early intervention, which is the hallmark of this government, even in times of great financial stringency, which he will remember is being imposed by a government of which...
Order.
Well, I know the alliance and the referendum, I didn't know it extended to actually not thinking we're in a period of financial stringency imposed by a Tory Liberal government at Westminster. I think that is a reality for this year and of next year. So just bear in mind that the efforts that have been made in Scotland are very substantial indeed, and that sincere commitment will improve and enhance the life chances of our younger people in Scotland, including those who are most at risk.
Question number 3, Wullie Rennie.
To ask the First Minister what issues will be discussed at the next meeting of the Cabinet.
First Minister.
Issues of importance to the people of Scotland.
Wullie Rennie.
As this government has finally admitted that it will need to negotiate Scotland's membership of the European Union, can he tell me, before the referendum, whether the voters will know what we could lose in those negotiations?
First Minister.
Well, what voters in Scotland lose is having Liberals propping up a Conservative party in government.
Wullie Rennie.
Well, that was a rather comprehensive answer that I wasn't expecting.
Order.
The First Minister doesn't seem to understand that this is not about membership, it's about the terms. And I'm surprised that the First Minister doesn't seem to understand that very simple point. This is about the politics of other countries. And he seems to think that all 27 members of the European Union will just sign up to whatever he wants. So now, as people doubt what he says, they doubt what he says whether the First Minister likes it or not. They want to know before the referendum what they might lose. So can he tell me when he plans to meet with the 27 members of the European Union to discuss Scotland's membership and to establish what they will want in return?
First Minister.
Well, actually, Wullie Rennie, and I think in contrast to the previous two party leaders, has actually put his finger on something important. He's not questioning the fact that Scotland will be a member of the European Union, but taking the debate on to the negotiations. Now, I already pointed out to the Labour Party the answer I gave Patricia Ferguson earlier this year. But can I say to Wullie Rennie that when he's talked about terms in the past, he has actually stated that Scotland could be forced to adopt the euro. That's one of the key aspects. Well, I've got a number of quotes from... You think... Well, you're not disagreeing. You're shaking your head, but you weren't disagreeing. I see.
He's a Liberal.
Right, I tried to explain. I pointed out you're a Liberal Democrat. It was the Democrats rather. I tried to point out that under the circumstances that we envisage of Scotland's continuing membership, then of course we'd inherit the opt-out position. But even if that weren't the case, it doesn't follow at all that we'd be forced into the euro. And if he wants an explanation of that, then I suggest he looks at the Scotsman newspaper, since it's been quoted so extensively by Joanne Lamont, and the article today from Daniel Keneally of the Politics and International Relations Department at the University of Edinburgh. And he goes through the whole range of European debate. But he exactly points out there is one point, he says, which is virtually beyond argument. I'll quote him exactly. Just one opt-out must be discussed here briefly, and that is the euro opt-out. The euro is a genuine example of scaremongering within this debate. The notion that Scotland could be forced or compelled to adopt the euro is simply untrue. Now, I think it ill behoves the politician in this chamber who was most in favour of the euro just a few years ago in the terms of this.
Order!
When Wullie Rennie became Chief Executive of the Scottish Liberal Party just a few years ago, he said that Scotland would be leading the Yes campaign for the euro. The Yes campaign that's going to take place is the Yes campaign for an independent Scotland. But for a Liberal Democrat to scaremonger over the euro defies not just the past record of that party, but is reducing the debate to a level worthy of a party which has 5 members. So if Wullie Rennie will, in the words, accept that is scaremongering, as he's suggested, to suggest that Scotland could be forced into the euro, then perhaps we can get the debate onto a level that I know the Liberal Democrats would really like to have.